This is Level Up Life After 40 with Shy P
and Amy E., helping women over 40 to grow, reinvent, and stop settling for just getting by.
because your best chapter might just be ahead.
Thanks for tuning into another fantastic episode of Level Up Life After 40 with Shy P and Amy E. And today's guest is someone who took a frustrating experience that most parents absolutely dread and turned it into a business that is changing lives. We are so excited to welcome Shellee Howard, who is founder and CEO of College Ready. She is the 2026 Global Education Consultant of the Year, the top 100 women to know in the U.S. She has been featured on Fox, NBC, CBS, U.S. News and World Reports, and has a TV episode on Next Level CEO with Damon John. And as a sought-after voice in strategic debt-free college planning. She has 4 students who have graduated from college completely debt-free, one of them being Harvard Medical School. She is once again a strategist and admissions specialist, 2-time best-selling author, and a UC graduate. And today we are going to have an open conversation about not only her experience and how she started this business, but really kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of how she was able to turn this problem into a thriving, passionate business. So without further ado, Shellee, welcome and thank you so much for being a part of our podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to sharing with your audience.
Yay!
If only she had some accolades to go with
I know,
her. My
right?
goodness. We are excited. I'm curious, how did this come about? Because I don't think most people would wake up and go, I think I want to help people figure out how to get their kids into college without going broke.
So it's a great story, but I'll give you the condensed version. It really started when my son, my oldest, came home from middle school about this time, 8th grade year, and he said, "Mom, I know exactly what I want to do after high school." And I'm like, "What? You're just starting high school." He says, "Yeah, the high school counselor came into our middle school today and said we need to pick our first classes, and those classes will make a huge difference in what we get to be." And so I said, "So what are you going to do?" And he says, "Well, I want to be a brain surgeon. I want to go to one of those Ivy things." And it was like silence. I'm like, "Okay, I changed my major 5 times, and I'm the first to go to college on both sides of our family. And I still don't always know what I'm doing right. So how do you know this?" And he says, "Mom, I want to make people's lives better. And you told me that when you serve your community, everybody wins. And that's what I want to do." He was my why. He was the reason all of this got started. Now, believe me, I never thought it'd be a career. I was not doing this at the time. I was a mom with a simple other career, but I am an entrepreneur. This is my 7th business, so it's not my first rodeo. And I leaned all in, as I do with most things, and I went back to school and I became an independent certified college consultant, started touring 25 colleges a semester in person. And that young man did exactly what I asked him to do. Now, remember, I have 4 kids. That is not common theme for the other 3. They didn't think I knew anything. And so we have to be mindful of what that looks like. Long story short, he applied to 12 schools, got accepted to 11, got a full ride at USC, and Harvard matched it. So it was a beautiful opportunity for him. Now, I, on the other hand, live in California, and I really wanted him to stay. So I was actually fighting for USC. I have no strings attached, but I was really thinking I'd like him an hour from home. But he had bigger plans, and it was the perfect fit school for him. And so that's how College Ready got started.
Wow. That is a great story. I got some chill bumps too, just with the messaging that he had with when you're serving your community, everybody wins. That's really great philosophy to go through life with.
Sure.
So when you first started this business, how did you go about getting your first client? Because a lot of times women, when we're thinking we're going to start a new business or go down a different career path, our first challenge is, well, okay, I've got this great idea, but who's going to be my first customer?
This is probably one of my favorite stories. So I'm sitting at my son's high school graduation, front row, and he was giving his salutatorian speech. And the young man sitting next to me says, "Dude, I didn't even know that kid was smart." And I look at him and I said, "Do you call me dude?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Do you know I'm his mom?" And he goes, "No way." Like he was totally like, "This is crazy." And he goes, "Can you help me? Can you help me do that?" And he was my first client.
Oh, wow.
What year was he?
He was a junior in high school at the time, and he ran to his parents as soon as graduation was over, and he did a warm introduction, and he basically told his parents, "See that kid over there? He's going to Harvard for free. Will you hire her?" And they said yes, and that was my first client.
Wow.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
So, yes, it was not a traditional marketing strategy. It was one of which they saw the value, and he
Um,
was like, "This is amazing," because that kid didn't look like he worked that hard.
mm, wow.
Yes, he had to have done something right along the way with obviously your guidance. So, are there any tricks of the trade that you can share with us? Maybe just a little bit of how to get that process started?
Absolutely. So, first things first, starting a business is probably one of my favorite things to do. I'll address after that client how I got the rest of my clients.
Hmm.
And it came down to I have three other children that are younger than him. And so I found myself in the playground of where all of these parents are stressing out, freaking out, overwhelmed to the 10th degree. And so I just started helping them like I'm going to help your listeners right now. And this is how the business grew. I believe in paying it forward, and that is really important to me. I have a ton of free resources that I will give away to your listeners. But more importantly, what I'm sharing is exactly the strategy that you need to use. It's so important that everybody understands college is a business and it's like playing Monopoly. If you sit down to play Monopoly and you don't know the rules to the game, how do you win the game? As soon as somebody says, "Hey, would you like to know how to play Monopoly?" And you're like, "Yes, I would." All of a sudden, you know what passing go means and landing on Park Place, right? You're like, "Oh, I understand what's going on here." So that's what I want your listeners to understand is I'm going to be giving these opportunities away. So parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, just know you are all able to play a part in this. These teenagers are stressed out, overwhelmed, clueless, financially struggling to understand how much $400,000 education is going to cost them. So, first things first, it's all about creating a plan. And the plan has to be a long enough runway for your family to make decisions. I'll give you an example. With my firstborn, when we were traveling, I would say, "Great, let's go to this science museum. Let's go to this art museum. Let's go to this college football game." No pressure. How fun. My son grew up going to all these plays and these football games, and he was just like, "This is awesome." And then when I took him to Harvard when he was in fifth grade, we had family on the East Coast. We were just walking around, didn't have a formal tour. And we walk into where the freshmen ate. And it was like walking into Hogwarts. Huge Harry Potter fan. And he was like, "Wow, mom, this is it. Like, I am here. I know exactly what and now it was super easy because I didn't have to motivate him. He was
Mhm.
self motivated because he saw the benefit of working hard. But it really comes down to the family understanding what is the best academic fit, what's the best social fit, and what's the best financial fit. I'm the only consultant I know that talks about return on investment. It is a very strange world in which I live that everybody is more concerned about getting into a school than how are they going to pay for that education. I'm an entrepreneur. I look at ROI all day long. If something doesn't make sense for me, marketing or hiring, whatever it is, I reverse engineer it until I understand, is that a good move? And that's all I did with college. And so it's starting with the end in mind. My son wanted to be a doctor. You can't be a doctor without a college degree. It's not negotiable, right? So knowing he had to go to college, I'm thinking which is going to be the best college for him to get the education, get the social environment that would be good for him, and leave without this massive burden and debt on his shoulders. That's how you think about it. So it's a strategy, but it's got to be unique to each child because I don't know you families out there, my four, they're very different. So if I worked the strategy with number one for number two, three, and four, it wouldn't have worked. So that's how it all got started.
Mhm.
When you first started this business, what fears or doubts did you have in your mind and how did you overcome them?
So again, it's a different mindset than maybe a lot of people come with. I was in corporate for about 7.5 years, straight
Hmm.
out of college. I work for a Fortune 500 company, and I learned that's exactly what I didn't want to do for the rest of my life. But I knew that very early on, and I was
Hmm.
raised by two entrepreneurs. So again, I have to be humble in the fact that I didn't know any different than to just do it. I have failed forward more times than I know how to count because that's what you have to do if you're going to work for yourself. Not everything comes with instruction manual. And so you have to be mindful. I'll never forget the first time I did public speaking on stage. It was to a crowd of 5,000 people. And I remember like, I wonder if I should have said yes. Like it was that moment right before I went on that's like, I didn't really think this through all the way. And I got up on stage and I just started sharing. And I just started leaning in. How can I help you all? What can I do to make your life better? And at the end, I was like, I got paid for that. That was amazing. And that is how I just continued to run the business. And 18 years later, we're entering our 19th application season. I love it today more than I've loved it the first day I started. And teenagers have different challenges, not more, just different.
Hmm.
Right? Every generation can talk about some of our challenges. It's just different. And so being able to be their mentor and listen to parents and their struggles and the reality of the fear, the anxiousness, the overwhelm. I'm a bit of a therapist, a bit of a consultant, a bit of a strategist. But the best part is when the kids get into college and they call me and they say, Shellee, we're going to Yale. And I'm like, when do we leave? We're going to Alabama. When do we leave? And they're like, oh, yeah, you don't get to go.
Mhm.
But it feels so good to be included.
Well, I'm just curious, when you work with these families, how long are you with them? Are you with them all through high school, or is it kinda like a one consultation a year, or how does that work?
So we are an all inclusive program, which means that I'm with them from the day they start until the day they leave for college. That may be seventh grade, eighth grade, ninth grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, or 12th grade, depending on when they find me. I, after all those accolades, I can't tell you every single day. I wish I would have known you, Shellee, before child one went into massive debt. So it's all about getting out there to let families know it is possible. Our students earned over $11.8 million in scholarships last year alone. There's so much money and so much opportunity. I can't go on social media because it makes my blood pressure too high.
Mm, mhm.
When you talk about the different scholarships that are available, there's a lot of families out there like, well, we make too much money, so there's no way my kid's ever going to get a scholarship. So why even bother? And it's a waste of time. What do you say to those parents and to those students for that matter that already have that mindset?
So I tell them, you don't know what you need to know. And I'm happy to educate you if that's what you'd like. I offer podcast listeners 30 minutes of my time so they can get clarity and ask those hard questions. And so, step one is understanding there's four buckets of money, four buckets of scholarship money. There's the need base, which very few people get because you have to make $200,000 a year or less as a family. But that's only one bucket. There's three other buckets. And that's where parents are missing huge, right? That's how all four of my children got through completely debt free is because we tapped into four buckets. It's the institutional money. When a college wants a student, they fight for them by throwing money at them. Remember, it's a business. Think about this, Cheyenne, right? If I come to you and I say, Cheyenne, I want to work for you. I heard you're the best in the business. And you say, well, can I see your resume? And I say, well, Cheyenne, I've been at the beach this summer hanging out with my girlfriends. I haven't had much time to work on my resume, but I really want to work for you. You're going to say, well, come back when you have a resume. Versus child number two says, Cheyenne, I really want to work for you. And you say, can I see your resume? And I simply say, I've worked really hard to narrow it down to 4 pages, but I want you to know if you hire me, you can go on vacation and never have to worry about your company ever again. Who you gonna hire and who you gonna give the big money to?
Mhm.
Same exact process, right? Think of real estate. Would you go up and pull out the flyer and go, I'm gonna make sure I offer that much money? Only in California and New York, maybe. Most of the country, probably not. So it's really important that parents look at college as a business and look, where's the money? There's independent scholarships, there's institutional, and there's merit. There is more money than anybody could ever possibly want. This year, 2026, I had one student with a 3.8 GPA earned $428,000 all by herself. Well, with our help, but she earned them. Nobody gave them to her. She will be making money while attending school. It's so out there.
And I'm so glad you brought up 4 buckets because my daughter is going to be a sophomore at Western Michigan University. And we were only looking at bucket number 1, which we didn't qualify for. I wish, going back in time, I wish I would have met Shellee, that we could have tapped into these other 3 buckets. And that's why it is so important that our listeners know to connect with you, because this is invaluable information. It really and truly is. And I want to bring up a point that you brought up earlier when you said being an entrepreneur, that you failed along the way. One of the phrases we say on this podcast all the time is there is no such thing as failure. The only failure is quitting.
Mhm.
Everything else is just learning. And using those failures, as I put in quotes, I should say, as opportunities to learn and to grow and to move on.
Mhm.
I appreciate that you work with people through multiple stages. Do you ever have an instance, and by stages, I mean grades. Let me just clarify that. But do you ever have an instance where the parents are wanting their child to pursue a certain course and the child is just like, it's not what I want to do?
Absolutely. I have parents who give their children 3 options. You're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. That's it.
Mm,
Which one of those do you want? We navigate that and we're able to help the family to come to the best place for all. And then when it comes to helping families navigate classes, test scores, leadership, extracurriculars, what we learned is the more you tell a teenager they have to, the more they dig in. If you can make it about them and their opportunity and why it will benefit them, and they now lead it, it's super simple. If they say my dream school is UCLA, and I say you need to take this AP course to get there, it's non negotiable. It's super simple. They're like, okay, yeah, let's do it. There's never any conflict when it's their idea. It's
mhm.
when it's the parent's idea and they're pushing against it because they're trying to adult. And it's a very normal thing, right? We want our kids to adult, but it is hard as a parent to be on the other side where they don't value our wisdom.
Mhm.
Mhm.
What is the biggest misconception that people have about college admission consultants? And what can you try to help families understand?
Well, number one, unfortunately, the industry is all over the place. I am a certified independent college consultant, but many are moms who had a child go to college or dads. And so there's no regulation. I don't know if your listeners remember, but there were a few that went to jail during the scandal because it's not regulated. So you have to be very careful, parents, when you are interviewing a certified college consultant. Ask them, are they certified? Are they part of an ethics organization? Are they going to help you get scholarships? I am very unique in that I talk about the money side of it. Most college counselors, high school or college counselors, will talk about, here's a great school. Here's how you're going to complete the application. They talk about the steps of completion, but they don't talk about, is this the best route to get to the career you want? And when you get there, is this the amount of money you're going to want to make? And will AI be taking that job before you graduate?
Right.
So nobody's talking about the return on investment of the education and of the time. They're just simply, a student says, I want to go to San Diego State. And they're like, great, just complete this application and go. And that's the big problem, is there's a huge gap. San Diego State doesn't give scholarships. If parents can't afford that school, now what are they going to do? They're going to take on loans.
Oh,
And then we get into the whole deep, dark, big, scary loan situation.
yep. I like that you look at the ROI because being real estate, I got into real estate because my husband and I invested in real estate. So then I became an agent because I always think about these people. They spend $200,000 for a degree to become a barista. That is not getting your ROI. That knowledge you're going to get at the library. You don't need to pay a ton of money for a degree that cannot bring you, I want to say value, but seriously, some type of value where you can earn a living.
Mhm. It's so important. And that's why I think I get a lot of second or third children, is because parents realize there's got to be a better way. Or the first child has taken the whole scholarship funds for all of the rest of the children, and now they really need to figure it out. But what I love families to think about is, we're not just getting our kids into college. We're actually using college as a stepping stone to get to the career that's going to help them adult, that's going to provide them for a lifestyle forever. And not every student I work with goes to college. Some of them decide, hey, I'm going to go and start this, or I'm going to go and be this. And that's okay too. But here's the thing, if a student isn't going to college, I want you, listeners, to ask, that's great, but then what? That's all I want you to say. Without judgment, without condemnation. It's just like, okay, I honor you, but what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Right? I hear students who want to be influencers at least every day when I talk to them. That is, likes are not going to bring home the bacon. So I tell students, where's your business plan? I look at things very much through the eyes of a business person, and they're like, I don't know how to do a business plan. I go, "Oh, guess what they teach at college?"
Mhm.
And they're like,
Right.
wow, that's so cool.
Mhm. Yeah.
I bet they
I
even sounded like that too, Shellee. I had to laugh.
and I personally, I went to a technical college, so I got just a 2-year degree, and I was a physical therapist assistant, but I got paid very well. I more than paid for my education and went into real estate, did entrepreneurial things. And it's funny because I'm talking about getting the degree and becoming a barista. My major, had I gone to the College of Charleston like I planned, was going to be theater. So, how do you want your coffee, ladies? Because I'm not that good of an actress.
Hindsight 2020 right there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like dad was right. Okay. I said it out loud for the world to hear. Dad was right.
I love the fact that you talk to students about what their end game is, right? What type of career do you want? What type of lifestyle do you want to live? And then work it backwards. Okay, this is our goal. This is what we want. And now let's chunk it down and get it to how are we going to achieve said goal. And you're right, working with somebody like Shellee is not like working with a guidance counselor that's just going to help you fill out an application and maybe review your essay. which those are all good things, but Shellee is literally taking it to the next level and taking it to the next step and really focusing on what the student wants. Having a 19-year-old daughter, when it's her idea, she will move mountains. When it's my idea, it just sits. It's stuck in the mud and never goes anywhere. I could repeat it 16 times and it just falls on deaf ears.
Mhm.
You're not alone.
It Strategist is a great word for what you do because it's not just, "Oh, I'm gonna show you how to write a good essay," or whatever. It's a true strategy to help them succeed, not just for the college career, but
Mhm.
on down the road, and then kind of pass that knowledge along or just keep you in business when they have their kids.
And you know what? That's all they want, which is really interesting because I meet with so many teenagers and I truly adore teenagers. They're my favorite people. What I have learned from them is they are so overwhelmed. They are in analysis paralysis. They're so worried about making a wrong decision, they make no decision. To a parent, that looks like they are procrastinating, they're not listening. And so we find when we start to look at both sides, which I do, I find that it really is once I educate the student on how to be successful, they're all in and they are so relieved and they're excited and they're motivated. And so, parents, it's not always that they're not motivated. It sometimes is they are too proud to say, "Can somebody please help me?"
Mhm.
I
Mm.
think sometimes too, it's their fear of failure or their
Mhm.
fear of how their peers are going to view them.
Mm.
Sure. Yeah, this generation does not like failure because everybody gets a trophy. So they aren't understanding how all that plays together. And then the other thing is, right, they're looking at everybody's best day on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, whichever. And if I had to do that when I was in my teens, I would feel pretty lousy about myself. And
Mhm.
so I try to help them really stay in their own lane and think about their passions, their gifts, their talents, their core values, what they advocate for. And don't worry about all that other junk. And that's how they're gonna be a solid adult, and isn't that what we're all looking for?
Mhm. Yes and amen. I do have a quick question. When you're talking to them just about like strengths and values, because Amy and I, we love like the Strengths Finder test. Do
Mhm.
you use any tools like that with these kids?
We do, but we have to high school it. Here's the thing, I love strength finders. I think it's a very valuable tool, probably one of my favorite if I have to say so, but not for teenagers because when you try to take an immature mind and put it into an adult mind, it's chaos. They're feeling disconnected, overwhelmed, frustrated. They're like, "No, that is not me. I don't know who you're talking about." So we've actually had to come up with our own. As part of my master's program, my thesis was helping kids figure out who they are. I take it very, very to heart because I can't tell you how many adults come to me and say, "Shellee, I still don't know what I want to do. Will you help me?" Had I had this when I was a teenager, I would have had a very different career. And so I've learned that these teenagers, it has to be. Shall I give you an example, Cheyenne? Would that be helpful?
Please.
Yes.
Yes.
So for the listeners, this is a fun game. And so there's only two rules to the game. We gamify everything. The game is I want to be a millionaire, but we play it with only two rules. First rule is parents, when the teenager says something that you want to scream and pull out your hair, you have to keep a poker face. You have to really be very stoic and understanding and not talk and just be kind of quiet. And then for the student, they have to give it 110%. There's no quitting at this game. Here's how the game is played. You can start playing it with any student who has intellectual curiosity. I find that to be around fifth grade or higher. And so here's how it's played. You start with the oldest child and you say, if I gave you $1 million cash and you had 24 hours to spend it, or you had to give it all back to me, what would you do with it? And you're going to hear children say, I'd buy a yacht, an airplane, and take my friends around the world for 10 years. And you're like, "No, no, no, 1,000,000." And they're like, "Well, yeah, that's what I'm talking about." And you're like, "Okay, great." And then you'll have another student who will be like, my favorite one, "Well, first I'd buy a rental, a fixer-upper, and then I would flip it and buy 2, and then I buy an apartment." I said, "What do your parents do?" And he says, "They flip rentals." I'm like, "And they pay attention, parents."
Mm.
So this game is genius because you will learn, will they buy everything for themselves? Will they buy the car for themselves, the house for themselves, the toys for themselves? Are they very centric on themselves? Or will they just say, "You know what? I care deeply about this charity. I'm going to give them 500,000, and this is what I'm hoping they're going to do with it." And you're like, "Whoa,
Mm.
this is amazing," right? And so you find this huge gap from these teenagers, these young adults. It works with adults too, by the way, but there's a gap in what is reality and what is true. Because if somebody says to me, "I don't care about money," I ask them this: "Would you like a new car every year or every 10 years?" "Well, I would like one every year." "Oh, so you do care about money because cars cost money." "Well, yeah, I care." So all of this sudden they were going to be in social work, right? And then they're like, "Well, social work's not going to get me a new car every year. So maybe I want
Mhm.
to be a lawyer and advocate for those people." This is how we're able to gamify and make it an enjoyable experience versus fill in the bubble.
Hmm. Clever.
I think that's fantastic. And I love the fact that you said start it when they're young. Start building that seed and getting that mind turning. And like you said, we're going to go to a football game at a university, and we're going to go to a museum, and we're going to go to the art institute in a different city, and just learning where they're at and where their passion lies.
Mhm. Yeah, you have to actually observe and get off. Quit doing this yourselves, folks. Quit looking at your phones and look at your kids and see what's going on. I have another question just because and, man, my dad was right. My parents drives me nuts, but I do give them their credit now that I'm in my 50s. Yes, you were right. But when I was going to technical college, it actually took me almost 4 years to get a 2-year degree because I kept changing my major. Do
Mm.
you experience, like, we've mapped out the strategy and we've come up with this game plan, and then maybe they get started, or it's like, "I just saw this documentary and I wanna do this now." Do they change their minds? Do you have to re-strategize?
Depends when we do this work. If we do this in like 8th or ninth grade, we usually have to redo it at the end of their sophomore year. There's
Mm.
just too much. Once they get a car, life changes a lot. And when they pay for gas, like all of a sudden, like, whoa, like food is expensive and gas is really, so they have this newfound like, I think money's going to be part of the process. But if it's truly in somebody's sophomore or junior year, it sticks. It's super solid. There is a caveat. If a student is really, really good at a lot of things, math, English, science, history, that's harder for them because it's not as easy as, "Oh, you're good at math. You can be a math teacher or an engineer. Which one would you like?" But for a student who can be anything, whew, that buffet is really hard to decide what they want. And so sometimes we find that by giving them 3 careers and 3 majors, it allows them to pivot enough to stay in that lane without having to completely start from scratch because
Mhm,
their core values are set by the time they're in ninth grade. So at that point, if they value family, that does not change. It
mm,
really holds true. If they value money, that really rarely changes. So we can hold pretty close to the core values. And then when we're in alignment with that, they're pretty true to that, unless they're just on the immature side. And then, we just have to roll with it.
mhm.
Mm.
Interesting. Amy, what you got?
Transition. Yeah, no, transitioning now to maybe some of our level up life Lula listeners, as we like to say. You took a leap and started this business. You had 7 other successful businesses. You decided to start this one. What advice or encouragement would you give someone that is in a career, likes what they do, but isn't passionate about what they do? They're making money, but maybe they've got an idea or they've something in the back of their mind is telling them, gosh, I really want to start this, but I don't know where to start. Or what if I fail? Or I'm just not sure. Any advice that you could give them?
Such a good question. We call this passion with a purpose, and it works for teenagers as well as adults. When you find your purpose, everything's in alignment. If you're missing your purpose, you're out of alignment. What does that mean? Purpose means at the end of your lifetime, are you going to look back and be like, wow, I really didn't accomplish much. I didn't do what I set out to do, and I really didn't connect with most people, and I feel pretty empty. Ugh, that's missing your purpose. How do you get your purpose? You work with a mentor. I can't tell you how much that makes a big difference. Every business that I've ever done that's been successful, I've had a brilliant mentor right by my side to say, I'm not sure. And they say, well, let's talk this through. And we look at the pros and the cons. And, they're not vested other than wanting me to be successful. So, having a mentor has been huge, and I've had many, many of them. My dad was my first mentor, and since then, I have realized that he was pretty wise. Like you, Cheyenne, I could have learned a lot more when I was younger, but I'm still learning. And then the second thing is, it really comes down to what problem do you solve? There are many things I get excited about that I could start a zillion businesses. Like I could start anything. But what I do with my students is help me understand what the current problem is. Because if there's no problem, why would people pay you?
Mhm.
It's a very simplistic idea. For me, college is really super expensive and it's super overwhelming. And from day one, I just wanted to help people so it didn't feel so heavy and it didn't feel so overwhelming. And they had a plan. My purpose is to help a million families get into college and graduate without debt. That's my purpose. It just happens a little bit differently through the day, right? And so, step one is what is your purpose? Step two, if you don't know, get help. There's help out there. Hire a good mentor, a good coach, worth every penny. And then finally, there you go. And then finally, put together a vision of what you want that to look like. Don't get caught in the weeds of I have to first do this and I have to do that, because I would have not written either of my best-selling books if that was the case. I didn't like writing in high school. I still don't enjoy writing. But if I'm going to help a million families, there's not enough hours in the day for me to talk to each of them individually. And that's where I learned the books now is it. I could reach so many people, and that's why I love podcasts, is we're doing the exact same thing. And so really getting clear on the vision of what you want and not getting stuck in all the reasons why it won't work.
Mm.
But like you said, go to a mentor. There are resources that are people out there that can, check those boxes for you. You've got the idea, you've got the passion with conviction
Mhm.
to drive and make it happen.
Mhm. Yeah. People have a tendency to fall into the trap of being busy and not productive, and I can say that without any type of judgment because I've been there myself. And that's I've
Absolutely.
actually yeah, so my coaching, because we get coached by our peers while we're going through the program, and some of that, they're just like, "Well, what are the 3 main things you need to do?" Because 'Cause I'm listing an item of 20 or a list of 20, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, these yeah, that is doable. Okay, thank you." So, yeah, don't get bogged down in the minutia. I
Mm.
wanna ask you one more question, if I may, ma'am. I have enjoyed this tremendously, and I almost wonder if I had known you back then, maybe I would have gotten a business degree since
Mhm.
that's what I seem to kinda lean towards is starting businesses.
Mhm.
Um, do you work with adults? Like, say somebody is 30 and, like, with me, I had the 2-year degree, like, "Hey, what kind of path do I maybe wanna take? I'm not 100% happy." Do you work with grown adults to help them strategize and maybe find money? Can you find money for adults?
So the first part, yes, I do help adults. It's really called Life Ready. Originally, that's what college ready was called, is life ready, and everybody's like, "What do you mean?" And I'm
Uh-huh.
like, "Okay, I'm gonna have to get a little bit more specific." So yes, I can help adults to a point. I can help them to get clarity. I can help them to create a plan. I I think of life as an entrepreneur. Every problem has a solution. And how do I help that person who is feeling not where they're supposed to be get to where they want to be? Same process I take them through. And so, yes, to your question, if a adult wants to go back to college, there's a little bit more struggle. Here's the reality. If you've taken one college class, now you're a college transfer. And that means you need 60 transferable units. And that is if there's a gap in time, I can speak about this. My husband decided he was one class shy of getting his degree at UC Santa Barbara. And now he's 11 classes shy and he's not as motivated to get that done anymore because he's retired. But he did think it would be feel really good to have that to say, my dad got a college degree. So it's a transfer strategy at that point and that is something that we can help with. Scholarships, absolutely. Families can start applying for college scholarship money by the time they're in fourth grade. So, all of these years that people are waiting because they're too busy is missed opportunity. My son got a $25,000 a year scholarship from Coca Cola, you know, that soda pop, and it was because of leadership. They loved his leadership. He worked hard for it, but yes, it was based on leadership, not anything he particularly did other than have a strong leadership resume. So absolutely parents, adults, if you're feeling like, gosh, I wish I could have had this, reach out to me. I'm happy to meet with you for 30 minutes, give you some resources, and then either send you off your way or see how I can best serve you.
Uh,
I had no idea you could start that early. I think so many of us parents think, oh, I guess you start applying for college scholarships your, second semester of your junior year and then first semester of your senior year. But
Yeah.
not realizing you've probably missed out on a lot of opportunity. And I remember hearing this from, I want to say, a guidance counselor. They said, there are so many scholarships that because people don't apply for them, they go unused.
Yep.
Millions of dollars every year go unused because nobody applies for them, because they don't know, because they haven't contacted somebody like a Shellee to help them find those opportunities and that money. Free money. Hello, free money.
Yeah.
I so love what you do. I love your vision and your goal. This is so important because I do feel college can be very valuable. I don't think it's always for everybody. And please, Lord, if your kid wants to be an electrician, yes, we need them. We need good electricians, HVAC people, mechanics, all the things. We need trades. But I do think college is beneficial. And I have had moments where I wish that I had gotten just a bachelor's degree just because some more doors will open.
Mm,
Even if you just have that education behind you, you might have some more doors open. But I
mm,
also like that you do strategize to make sure you're not gonna get a degree in something that's going to be gone in 2 years because the technology is going that quickly. I think that takes, some of the fear out for these kids as well because they will have some analysis paralysis because it's like, "Well, what do I study because I don't even know if it's going to exist." So I think what you're offering is just tremendous. We're going to be wrapping up here shortly, but if you had just some final words or what's the message that you really want to get out to people today, whether it's entrepreneurs or people with kids or both, how do you want to wrap us up?
So, boy, those are 3 different hats that I wear. For the parents, your teenager needs you even if they act like they don't. I just want you to know they do. Secondly, you've got this. Once they figure out that you're on their team and you want them to be successful and it makes sense for your family, it's going to bring you closer. It's a lot of work to get there, right? But it's the hardest job you'll ever love. And then finally, for families who are trying to navigate college admissions and the cost of it, please don't think that you make too much money and don't
Mhm.
try. It is, if I haven't shared enough today, there's so much money. My son got $63,000 a year for free. And that's not because he was perfect. He was not. But we knew that with 4 kids, if I did not figure this out, I would not have retirement. And I do at some point, I don't know when, but at some point, I hope to be able to retire and enjoy all of those things that I've been working on. And finally, find your passion and live with purpose. I have a nonprofit called empowereducation.world where teenagers lead other teenagers to find their passion. And it works the same way with adults. Lean in, help another person, take the focus off of you and take it to them. Leave the others in the rear view and just, you've got this. Keep moving forward.
And I
Excellent.
love that you said you got this because that's literally how we end every single episode on Level Up
Yep.
Life After 40. So, listeners, you got this. Just a quick reminder, everything we share on this podcast is for inspirational, personal growth, and real-life conversation. We're not doctors, therapists, financial advisors, or legal experts. Just two women sharing experiences, lessons, and stories to help you level up your life. Always do what's best for you and seek out qualified professionals when you need specific guidance. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and remember, you got this.